Before the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season, or before the NASCAR season, NASCAR announced that they would be handing out harsher penalties. We got L1s, L2s, and L3s, and NASCAR has proven that they are not bluffing at all. Today, an L2 penalty was handed to Brad Keselowski and RFK, and it is quite a harsh penalty. One of the harshest penalties I have seen in my 12 years of being a fan, to be honest, but it is quite something. Let's look at it. NASCAR officials issued an L2 penalty to the number 6 Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing team on Thursday morning, penalizing the team 100 drivers' points and 100 owners' points to significantly impact its path to the postseason. The penalty came under sections 14.1 and 14.5 in the NASCAR rulebook, both of which pertain to the modification of a single source supplied part. In addition to the points penalties, crew chief Matt McCall was fined $100,000 and suspended from the next 4 NASCAR Cup Series points races. Should the number 16 of 6 team of Brad Keselowski qualify for the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, it will be penalized with the loss of 10 playoff points. Prior to Sunday's race at Atlanta, Keselowski's number 6 car was sent to the rear of the field for unapproved adjustments. The violations announced Thursday morning were discovered during teardown inspection at the NASCAR R&D Center following the race weekend. The 100-point penalty will take Keselowski from 16th in the points with 122 points to 35th behind every single full-time driver in the field. NASCAR officials released a more stringent penalty structure for the 2022 season in January, including a list of deterrence options on a 3-tiered system from L1 to L3, as we said earlier. So the penalties for L2 can be a points deduction from 75 to 120 points, a playoff point deduction from 10 to 25, suspension of 1 or 2 crew members for 4 to 6 races, and fines between $100,000 and $250,000. So, wow. Brad Keselowski, his ownership, has started off, and it's got its first challenge, safe to say. Obviously, they started off the year pretty strong, swept the dual races, got some points there. They got 10 points from those dual races, him and Chris Buescher. And just like that, those 10 points are more than gone. I guess you could say those 10 points are in the 22 remaining. But for reference, Brad Keselowski, it says it drops him behind every full-time driver. Brad Keselowski has 22 points right now, thanks to the penalty. Jacques Villeneuve, who only raced 1 race and finished 22nd in that race with no stage points, has 15 points. We've had 5 races this year. So Brad Keselowski has essentially went from playoff bubble to must-win in its only race 5. Brad Keselowski, this penalty is going to severely hurt his team and also his team's playoff chances. But NASCAR would not specify what the exact part was other than the single supplied part or whatever. But according to Bob Pockers, I think he said that it has something to do with the rear of the body of the car. Yes, the body, the rear of the car, and the body. So I don't know what they did to make NASCAR really mad to break the rules this bad, but it must have been something, and must not have been worth it because, I mean, they weren't really running that great at Atlanta. So, yeah, this is a major penalty. I mean, seriously, 100 driver's points. The most points you can get in a race is 60. So more than a race, almost 2 races worth in terms of if you were winning every race. So this could be, if Brad's averaging 25 points a race, that's 4 races of points that he just lost. That's a huge, huge hit for them. Other than Daytona, they haven't been too competitive. They've been all right. Chris Buescher's gotten some top 10s. Brad Keselowski, I think he was, 14th last week. So, you know, they haven't been terrible, but they haven't been, competing for wins, top 5s, top 10s all the time. But that's a huge hit. And once again, it's a huge challenge for Keselowski in his first year as an owner. He has to deal with a suspended crew chief, a $100,000 fine, losing 100 driver's points and losing 10 playoff points. This is only year 1. So NASCAR, before the season, they said they weren't messing around. They were going to hand out more severe penalties for any infractions, especially L2s and L3s. And an L2 is $100,000, a 4-race suspension for the crew chief, I think that's what it said. Yeah. And then also docking 100 points. Just imagine if someone gets an L3 this year. God, everything's going to go crazy. But yeah, that's a big deal. NASCAR is not messing around with these penalties. And I think this is going to make a lot of teams take notice, With racing and stuff in cars, everyone pushes everything to the limits in terms of the rules and the rule book. And cars get sent to the back of the field for failing inspection a few times and whatnot. And then they come back, like Hendrick cars, Gibbs cars. They get sent to the back all the time. They end up winning. They end up in the top 5, leading a lot of laps, no matter what, because they're just that good. But, there's no points penalties usually. Sometimes you'll get a crew member tossed out. Sometimes you'll have to go to the back of the field. Sometimes if it's bad enough, you got to go to the back. You fail enough, you go to the back of the field, and then you have to do a pass-through on pit road. But those are just for one race penalties. This is not like a huge points penalty unless you violate something. We've seen cars fail post-race inspection. I think it was Eric Jones at Richmond in 2019. He finished 4th, but he was disqualified for something that they did wrong, and he ended up finishing 40th instead of 4th because of the unapproved part or whatever happened there. So we have seen cars fail inspection before. We have seen big penalties, but we've never seen anything this big. And this, I don't even know if this was inspection. They said they found it at the R&D Center in North Carolina, so they took it back to North Carolina, broke the car down, and they found something they didn't like, and they decided to hand out a very harsh penalty. So as I was saying earlier, those are like at-track penalties, but we have not seen a penalty of this magnitude in terms of after the race, somewhere else where the car's being broken down in the Research and Development Center. So, yeah, this is going to have a lot of teams on notice. Surely they're pushing the limits of the cars in terms of the race weekends, and if they have to go to the back of the field, they have to go to the back of the field. But if they were pushing anything else in terms of every week and, it's on the border of that L2, L3, any type of penalty, they may want to go back on that because NASCAR is not messing around with these penalties. So RFK hit extremely hard with these penalties. And, yeah, RFK, they've got an uphill climb in terms of the 6 car. Brad Keselowski now essentially and a must-win for the playoffs. And we're only 5 races into the season. That's how bad this hurts them. If they were competing for wins every week, I wouldn't be concerned, but they have not. So I'm very concerned for this team in terms of making the playoffs. This is really going to hurt them, and even if they do make the playoffs, they're going to lose all their playoff points unless they get like 20 of them. Then you just get half. But yeah, that's a big hit for them. A big news in NASCAR. It's going to send shockwaves through the sport. Like, oh, NASCAR wasn't kidding. They're actually going to hand out those big penalties. So yeah, I just wanted to keep you updated on that. Brad Keselowski, you're a Brad Keselowski fan. That's a tough start to his number 6 career. But, yeah, big penalty for him, big penalty for RFK. Crew chief suspended, $100,000, 100 points. That's a big one. 10 playoff points, and, yeah, that's a big hit for them. So, thanks for watching this. If you enjoyed it, if you're a Brad Keselowski fan, you didn't enjoy hearing about this. But if you enjoy the content, you enjoy being updated on NASCAR, F1 news, leave a like. And if you want to hear more stuff, subscribe to the channel. That'd be cool. That'd be epic. And have a great rest of your day. It's morning, and we're talking about NASCAR penalties.